It is time for our weekly update with USD 443. Mr. Sheck is with us this morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm just still trying to determine whether it's 300 or 600 inches of snow that's coming. So maybe you could help me with that from what I hear.
Well, it looks like we're somewhere between there still. We don't really have an update.
Yeah.
Bill at the Weather Service said that pretty well covers it. You should be fine.
Okay.
Between 300 and 600.
Well, at least we know.
Yeah. It's going to be cold. We know that. Yuck.
Yes, sir.
Well, what's happening at USD 443?
You know, obviously, we've got a lot of things going on within the school district, and we've been able to highlight a lot of the things coming up. And, you know, TOC is still, we are still planning on it kicking off today.
Right.
We will figure out what that looks like over the next couple of days. If adjustments have to be made and things like that, we'll make sure to get communication out in the community. Just a reminder, and Carrie may say this again later, but Parent Square is where you get your information from the school on weather-related cancellations or different things like that. I can tell you firsthand, no decision has been made on school tomorrow. So, but my secretary does take bribes, even though she doesn't make the decision. She wanted me to make sure everybody knew that.
It's like you know the guy that makes the call, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
There you go.
So anyway, no, really what I want to do today is just share a little bit of information about the legislative session that is going on right now. Started on January 12th. Just give people some idea of some of the bills that are out there that could affect public education from an objective perspective. Not in support or against any of these things, so to speak, just making people aware of some of those things that are going on. And so the first thing that I would mention is if you're interested in tracking things like this, you can go to kslegislature.gov, and it is a very interactive page. I spend quite a bit of time on there right now because not only can you track the bills in the House and the bills in the Senate, but you can also go to the audio visual tab, and you can actually watch as they in real time debate some of these things and have conversation over them. And so with some of these education related bills,
right,
I enjoy seeing and hearing that discussion and that debate that occurs sometimes with those things as they progress, because that gives you a lot more context sometimes than just what's written in words on the paper.
And you don't have to drive all the way to Topeka to hear it.
Absolutely. So anyway, because we are in the second year of a biennium, so to speak, there were 68 education-related bills that came back from last year to this year.
Good grief.
So, yes. And so there are 68 that could at any point in time come back to the floor for a vote, so to speak. And then there are at least 16 new bills that have been introduced since either prior to the start, there's a way that they can actually present a bill before the session even starts by putting in a form and starting that process. So there's 16 that have either been introduced prior to them starting or now that they have started that also could affect education. And so I'm just going to go through a few of those, give a little...
Not all 80 of them.
Yeah, give a little tidbit on some of them and go from there. So these are the first group I'm going to go through are all bills that have passed out of committee,
okay,
which basically means they're much further along in the process. They could go for a vote and become law, so to speak, much quicker than some of the ones that have just been introduced to committee. Right. So SB 75 would establish the Education Opportunity Tax Credit, providing refundable tax credit for taxpayers with eligible dependent children who are not enrolled in public school. Hence what you hear referred to as a voucher system or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. So something that we're tracking very closely in the state of Kansas from the public education aspect. HB 2409 prohibits the start of school prior to Labor Day.
Okay.
So interesting.
Yeah.
HB 2411 reduces the required waiting period for CAPERS retirements hired by school districts in teaching positions. So currently there are 2 mandatory waiting periods dependent upon age for teachers that retire and then come back into an education situation or a teaching situation. So this could potentially eliminate their need to have to wait before they come back. And
Right.
with the situation that we have with the lack of highly qualified educators and different things, and the baby boomers getting out
While retiring,
in
right.
such a large quantity, we do have quite a few of our retired teachers in our district. I think it's up to 15 or 16 at this point that have retired and then come back to us in some capacity. And so this could potentially allow for us not to have those waiting periods. And there are some provisions in there where it could also keep us from having to pay such high penalties when they do come back to teach with us.
Right, due to their already getting retirement and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
HB 2415 requires every Board of Education to appoint a non-voting student representative.
That's kind of a cool thought, maybe.
Yeah. And again, these are just the verbiages on them.
Right.
Obviously, with each one of these bills, there's probably some more specific language that
Fair enough.
You could find that dictates what that's going to look like or what it's not going to look like. But HB 2420 requires parental consent prior to providing any school-based mental health services to a student, with certain exceptions. It also authorizes the imposition of a $5,000 civil fine for violating that. So from a school perspective, what that could mean is that we would be able to provide what we refer to as Tier 1 behavioral supports like we do with our students, but before we would go to any type of Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention, we would have to get parental consent to do so.
Okay.
So HB 2421, also known as the cell phone bill, and there is also one in the Senate as well, Senate Bill 302. Basically, those two bills are to limit the utilization of personal communication devices during school hours. Both of them are written a little bit differently. The Senate bill had a hearing last week. I haven't seen how that shook out yet. There's a lot of good things that would come out of the limiting of all of the communication devices and the distractions that creates in school buildings. Some of the issues that we would face with the way the bills are currently written could be, how are they stored? Where are they stored? Is that dictated to us? Do we have choices in the matter? Does it include passing periods and lunch, or is it specifically instructional time? So we're waiting to see kind of how all of those things shake out. However, if you didn't hear the governor in the State of the State address, she literally said, just get it to my desk and I'll sign it. Right. So there is probably a very high likelihood that some sort of statewide ban is placed on personal communication devices in schools at some point this legislative session.
Right. I did see her say that, and I went, oh, well, that doesn't seem very it doesn't seem to be a partisan fight. It seems like every side it's going to happen.
Yes.
So
in any case, and then so those are all things that have passed through committee.
Okay.
These next couple are things that are being introduced or have been introduced to committee, so they're not nearly as far along, but they're still things that we are tracking from the education perspective. They have looked at extending the sunset of the school finance formula. It would have sunset this at the end of this year, but it could go on to another year with the current formula as they continue to look at possibly revamping or redoing how the weightings work and how all of those things work for school funding. They could require at least 30 minutes of recess for K through 5 students every day. Establishing limitations on digital device use at certain grade levels. So not just banning the cell phones or the personal communication devices, but also saying at kindergarten, you cannot have those students on a device of any kind, whether personal or school issued, for certain amounts of time.
So limiting screen time, essentially,
yes, absolutely.
Based on age and such.
Absolutely. And then they are looking at defining homeschool, and they are looking at the tax credit scholarship opt-in at the federal level. So in the big, beautiful bill, there was provisions where there are opportunities for federal tax credits for students that are not attending public education, and the states were told that you have the option to opt in or opt out of that. And so our state has legislation ready to go to potentially opt into that situation.
Makes sense. Well, there you go. That's
so
a lot.
All that in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, there you go. And that was just a small fraction
a very small fraction
of all of them. So.
Seemed like a lot, and that was probably about 20 of the
right.
80 some that could affect public education in some way, shape, or form.
There you go. Well, we appreciate the update, and I know that's just one of many things that you, the superintendent, and the school board think about that maybe people don't think about you guys thinking about.
Absolutely. So. And I will say, if anybody has any input or would like a deeper conversation on any of those things, I would entertain that as well. So reach out directly to me, and I would be able to provide a little bit more detailed perspective on how that would or wouldn't affect public education or our district if some of those things were to be put into place.
There you go. Makes sense. Well, we appreciate the update. Carrie, I'm sure you have a few things for us as well.
Josh.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So we are going to have a curriculum review, and we've done that in the past.
Okay.
The materials that we are purchasing that will be in some of our grade levels, and these are the English language art materials.
Okay.
We will have them out for the public and for parents to come in and take a look at that, and that's going to be from February 2nd through February 6th, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And this is how it works. We have a form. You can use the form or not use the form. You can come in and just pick up a few materials and look at them, or you can plan a more in-depth study. We have a form where you can make notes, those kind of things, and then leave that for us so that we are receiving your feedback. Very important to us, and we want parents, stakeholders, that means taxpayers, anybody that lives in our community,
right,
to come in and take a look at those materials. I will post it on Facebook, so if you're like, what were those dates? That will be going out on Facebook as well, but that is February 2nd through February 6th at the district office, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll have all of the English language arts materials that we're looking at for selected classrooms or selected class grade levels is what I should say, available for people to come in and take a look at.
There you go. So if you're wondering what the kiddos are learning, here's an opportunity to go check it out.
Right, and we will let people know through Parent Square and then also on our social media.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Yep, no problem. We appreciate the update as always. And now, if I get the right mouse going on the right computer,